Think about it, what would happen if your phone, watch, computer and all the clocks in the world suddenly disappeared today? What time will you get up in the morning? When will you go to work? When will school or office start? And the most interesting thing of all, how do you know how much of the day has passed? Today, we do everything in our lives according to time. We wake up on the alarm, we schedule meetings, we check the timings of trains and flights, and we live by the hours and minutes every day. But most of human history was such that clocks did not exist. No wristwatches, no wall clock, not a smartphone, no digital displays. Still, it's civilized. The empires were upright, the trade was made, wars went to glory, and people have lived their whole lives. So here's the question, what did people do before clocks existed? In today's documentary, we will know how ancient humans understood time. When did he wake up in the morning? How did you organize the day? And how the world managed for thousands of years without a modern clock. And believe me, there are some things in this story that will surprise you. First of all, we need to understand why we need to measure time. If we look at the life of man thousands of years ago, his daily routine was completely different from today. He didn't have factories, no offices, no trams, not the internet. Nature was the heart of his life, sun, chant, weather, and the ground. When the sun came out, the day began. When the sun was grubby, the work was over. So simple. At that time, people didn't think about minutes and seconds. For him, time was a natural cycle, day and night, summer and winter, rainy and dry weather. This was his calendar and this was his clock. But as human civilization began to develop, so did the importance of time. Farmers should have known when to grow the crop. Sailors should have known when to start the journey. Religious leaders should have known the timing of rituals and ceremonies, and the government had to organize its cities and people. That's why man started trying to understand time. And this is where the story of timekeeping begins. The first and oldest clock was already present with man, and that was it. Sun. This may seem common today, but thousands of years ago, the sun was the most reliable timekeeper. People used to guess which part of the day was going on by looking at the position of the sun. When the sun was in Mashriq, it was morning. When he was over his head, it was noon. And when he leaned toward Maghrib, the evening was close. Even today, in many rural areas, people estimate time in the same way. But ancient civilization made is observation a science, and the most famous examiner by found in the ancient Egypt, the Ignatians, and among the world's first civilizations who began to systematically observe time. He noted that the shadows changed positions throughout the day, long morning, lunch off, and then long again in the evening. From here a revolutionary idea was born. What if we measure the shadow? This idea gave birth to sundial. The sundial was one of the world's first timekeeping devices. It was originally a simple structure with a vertical stick or object attached to it. As the sun moved, so did the shadow of the object. People could guess the time by looking at the position of the shadow. It was the technology of its time. And it happened for thousands of years. But there was a problem. What if the clouds come? What if it's raining? And the biggest thing, what happened at night? The sun is not at night. So how did people measure the time of night? This question compelled man to invent new methods by the Who. And this search gave rise to the world's first artificial clocks. But the Who clocks didn't run on batteries or electricity like it does today. One of them was so strange that time was measured by water, and in the other, the burning candle told the time. But how did it work? And could people really measure time with water and fire? But there was a big problem. The sun is not available all the time. It's dark at night, shadows are not visible on cloudy days, and inside the house, sundial doesn't work at all. That's why civilization needed a system that could tell the time even outside the sun. And here begins the story of the world's first artificial clock. First of all, let's go to ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. Here a strange invention emerged, water clock, also called clepsydra. The idea was surprisingly simple. A container would be filled with water. There would have been a small hole at the bottom of the container. The water slowly comes out. Marks would have been made inside the container. As the water level goes down, people will try to guess how much time has passed. Think about it. Today we see the digital clock, but thousands of years ago, people were telling time by looking at the level of water. He also had water clocks in the ancient courts. When a person gave a speech in court, a water clock was set for him. When the water runs out, its speaking time is also considered to be over. That is, the concept of time limit is also thousands of years old. But the water clocks were not perfect. The speed of the water could change due to temperature and pressure, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, yet it was a revolutionary technology for its time. But the man didn't stop there. Another interesting invention came out, candle clock. Yes, clock with mother light. Specially designed candles were used in China and Japan. The candles were marked differently. As the candles kept burning, the marking would be disrupted. People guess how much time has passed. Small metal balls were also installed in some candle clocks. When the candle lit at a specific point, the metal ball would fall and make a sound. It was the alarm system of that time, like the notifications of today's smartphones. Imagine how fascinating it is. Thousands of years ago, people were spending time with the help of fire, but there was still a problem. These systems couldn't be everywhere. That is why civilization has never stopped observing nature. The ancient people didn't just see the sun, he also observed the moon and the stars. At night, the stars move in a predictable pattern. Experienced sailors and travelers recognized these patterns. He used to guess not only the direction but also the time. In the journey of the ocean, this skill could have been the difference between life and death. There was no GPS, maps were limited, and the clocks weren't reliable. That's why the stars were the guides. Ancient sailors often looked at the sky and decided whether to continue the journey or stop. Now the question is this: what did ordinary people do? Did everyone have a water clock or a candle clock? The answer is no. Often people did not have a personal clock. His life was run on a natural signal. The sound of the rooster in the morning, the sunrises, activity of animals, weather patterns, these were all natural indicators. A farmer did not know the exact 6:37 a.m. All he knew was that the sun was out, and it was time to start working. And the interesting thing is that in those days there was no importance of minutes and seconds. Today, if the meeting is 5 minutes late, people get upset. But in the ancient world, people looked at time in a more flexible way. Unkliye, Suba, Dopahar, or the concept of evening, was more important. Now let's go to ancient Rome. The Roman Empire was one of the most organized civilizations in the world. They had to manage the army, trade had to be controlled, cities had to be organized. That's why timekeeping was very important to him. Romance improved sundial. Large sundials were installed in public places. People used to guess the time by seeing them in the cities. But Rome developed another interesting system. Horse. Yes, Roman civilization began to divide the deen into different horses. But their horses were not like today's horses. The days were long in the summer, small in winter. Therefore, Roman hours' length could have changed according to the season. That is, an hour was not 60 minutes all the time. Today, Hume seems strange. But at that time it was completely normal. The time was adjusted according to nature. Then came the Middle Ages, and here the story of timekeeping took a new turn. In Europe, churches were the center of society, and churches were required to schedule prayers and religious activities. That is why the system of church bells became popular. Bells were played during the main part of the day. When the bell rang, people understand that you have to start working. It's prayer time, or to stop working. That is, the whole city was running through a giant community clock. You didn't have a personal watch, but the whole city followed the same bell. This system continued for centuries, and then came an invention that changed time forever: mechanical clock, a machine that could tell the time without the sun, water, and fire. And it was this invention that laid the foundation for the modern world. But how did the mechanical clock come about? And how did it change the whole human civilization? But the biggest turning point in human history was yet to come, an invention that not only told time, rather, it took the whole world towards discipline, schedules and deadlines. Mechanical clock. Today, we consider the clock to be so normal that perhaps Hume has no idea how much it has changed human civilization. But when the first mechanical clocks appeared in Europe, it was nothing short of magic for people. Now for the first time, humans had a system that did not depend on the sun, neither the changes mattered, not by day or night, not because of the weather. The clock just kept running. According to history, the first mechanical clocks were developed in Europe of the 13th and 14th centuries. These clocks are not as small as they are today. Baki was growing up, often installed in churches and towers. The whole city could see them, and when the clock bell rang, people organized their work. It was the first time that machines were controlling time rather than nature, and slowly the world began to change. Earlier, people used to say, "See you in the morning." Now people started saying, "See you at 8. Earlier, people used to say, we'll finish the work by evening. Now people used to say, work will be over at 5 o'clock. This may seem like a small change, but in fact, it was one of the most social revolutions in human history. Factories needed accurate schedules, merchants needed the exact timing. The government had to organize the system, and mechanical clocks made all this possible. But an interesting question arises here: were the ancient people happier without time, or are modern people more productive with clocks? This question is still discussed by historians and researchers today. The life of the ancient people was synchronized with nature. He used to rise with the sun, they slept with darkness, his body followed natural cycles. Today we wake up with an alarm clock. They stay awake late at night with artificial lights, and often live according to the clock. Some experts believe that the ancient lifestyle was closer to the human biological clock, whereas the modern lifestyle made time more efficient. But at the same time, stress and pressure were also increased. Think about it. Thousands of years ago, no one was stressed about missing a 9 a.m. meeting, no one was worried about missing the train, no one had the tension of punching the office late. The pace of life was slow. But this does not mean that ancient people did not value time. Rather, he looked at the time from a different perspective. Time was a flowing cycle for him. The time, number and schedule have been made for us, and perhaps for this reason, even today, some remote tribes and traditional communities live life without the modern clock. Some tribes of the Amazon rainforest, some rural communities of Africa, and some of the world's most isolated groups, even today, with the help of natural signals, they organize their routine, sun, weather, animals, and environment. All these still act as a clock for them. That is, in a sense, the old ways of humanity are still alive today, and perhaps these give an important lesson. You don't always need a clock to understand the time. Sometimes nature itself is the turn clock of all. Today we count the seconds in the smartphone, smartwatches monitor the heart rate, and atomic clocks can measure nanoseconds. But all these technologies started with a simple observation: shadow of the sun, a shadow that would have made an ancient human think thousands of years ago, and that same curiosity gave rise to eventually modern timekeeping. So, whenever you check the time on your phone, or look at your watch, think for a moment. For thousands of years, human beings lived without all these things: no digital screens, no alarm, no clocks, just nature. And yet there is civilization. Pyramids were built, empires rise, oceans were crossed, and history was written. Think about it. Today we measure time, but perhaps time has shaped human civilization. And maybe not the most powerful invention wheel in history or the internet, rather a clock. Because when humans learned to control time, that's when he began to change his world. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.